and welcome to the Gothic Unicorn. Well, it's that time of year where Christmas is taking over. It's certainly taking over my craft room. Real decorations need sorting. Where do they get put so they're not in everybody else's way? My craft room. I'm also engaged in some full-size Christmas crafts for gifts. Now, I would love at some point to have a go at making one of these in miniature, but it's a working Christmas countdown and I can't figure out how to make it work. So I might just make a non-working version at some point. But yeah, Christmas is on my mind and all over my craft room. I've managed to clear off the table so we can work on it. And that's what we're going to do. Now today, I'm going to be looking at making Christmas pieces from ordinary objects. Now I've titled this video as one of my trash to miniature treasure videos. And I suppose in a way it is, because a lot of what I use for these are materials that would otherwise go in the trash. Or to be more correct, in the recycling. I'm just recycling them in a different way. So I'm going to be looking at using items that we might otherwise throw away, and of course craft materials that hopefully a lot of you have already got, because, well, we do tend to collect craft materials when we make things. So I'm talking about basic things like glue and paint, and maybe a few things that I'd class as leftovers, rather than lots of things that have been bought specifically for the purpose. That's the idea anyway. I'm going to start with one of my favourite materials. Actually, it's probably my favourite material. It is, of course, the cereal box. Now, I use cereal boxes because they are a good source of a reasonable size piece of material. But this is the piece I'm making is actually a piece you could make with just scraps, smaller boxes, any kind of food packaging. It's just that sort of thin-ish board material, called chipboard in some parts of the world. We just call it cardboard over here, but it's a packaging, it's a cereal box. And certainly people of my age in this country, it's very much a Blue Peter moment. I haven't yet figured out how to use a washing up liquid bottle in my miniatures, but I'm sure the time will come. That's dish detergent for other people. It's a bit of a joke over here that you'd make things out of the bottle that your dish detergent came in, and some sticky back plastic, which is that, literally as it sounds, it's that plastic covering that you get for putting over stuff that used to be really, really popular a few decades ago. So what I've actually done with my cereal box, this is the piece I was using, it's a bit left over from other projects, is I have cut out a load of circles. Now this is a 1-inch circle punch, and my 1-inch circle punch is getting to the point where it needs replacing. I have tried sharpening it with foil. I have tried oiling it with waxed paper. It's not great. I got 12 circles. I'd actually cut that piece down a bit from some of the others that I'd already made, and I've glued them together because I want to make a Christmas cake. Now in the UK, which is where I'm obviously from and what I'm basing everything on, Christmas cake is a very rich fruit cake. And when I say it's a rich fruit cake, we are talking of there is as much fruit in the cake as other ingredients. It is ridiculous. And The other thing about them is they are generally covered in marzipan and white icing. That's how they're done. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go to that level of detail with my Christmas cake. I'm just going to put some white on it. Now, I'm going to be using something which is puffy paint because I've got it left over from previous projects. What you could do is you could use a good layer of glue on the outside to smooth out the joins. I would recommend for that using something that's a bit tacky and using your finger to actually smooth it out. Letting it dry properly and then painting it. I mean, you could cover the top as well if you wanted a bit more texture. But this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the puffy paint. And I've done this before. I used this on a cake I made, I think it was for the channel's first anniversary. And the idea with this is it will indeed puff up if you leave it to dry naturally. If you put it on like so. And what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do most of this off camera actually, is I am going to put this on and then I'm going to use something to smooth it out. Now I think I'm not going to use my finger with this because it's quite thick and gloopy. I'm going to find a small piece of plastic packaging and smooth it over. At least that's the idea. So I'm going to go off and do that, and when this is dried I will show you how it's turned out. I let the puffy paint dry on the cake and then I had a bit of an incident. I tried to pipe a nice edge around the top and it didn't work. It looked rather rough. So to try and save the day, I roughed up the sides just to give it some more texture and to make it look like that rough bit around the top was supposed to be there. I'm always trying to cover my tracks when it comes to my miniatures when things don't quite go to plan. Now, to decorate the top of it, you could make something, but I'd got these Christmas stickers about, so I've just stuck a little poinsettia sticker on there. You could cut an image out and stick that on. You could make something three-dimensional. I made a little snowman in one of my recent videos. That would look great on top of there. Maybe if you can figure out how to make tiny little trees, you could do that. You could print something and cut it out. It's completely up to you, but it does make a very effective sort of Christmas cake, and that would work in any of my scenes, I think. Now the next thing I'm going to work on is, well, calling it a miniature make is a bit of a misnomer because it's something that most people will have seen at some point, if not actually made, even if not in 12th scale. Now I'm referring to paper chains, and I've got a Christmas tree and I want to decorate it quite simply, and I don't want to put tinsel, you know, the glittery sparkly garland on it, but I do want some kind of a garland on it, and I thought paper chains would be great. And this is a great one for decorating your house and it not costing anything. You can use any paper media at all. Well, you can do if you make them full size, just as easily to do so in a small scale. All that you need to be sure is that you like the colours. You know, you can paint stuff, you can just use any flyers or things that you might get, do the mail, you can use magazines even. Now this is just some cardstock that I was using because I want the tree to be simple. I wanted white, so white I went for. And all I did is I used my paper trimmer to cut off thin pieces. Now this one's quite thick actually. I did some that were thinner than this. I did them in a variety of sizes, just to sort of show that you can alter it according to your taste. Yeah, I suppose taste is the thing. You can have fatter pieces, you can have thinner pieces. And this is just what I've got left over. That and a small pile of little pieces, because all you do is you need to cut your piece into smaller pieces so that you can make your links. Yes, I suppose if it's a chain, they're links, aren't they? You have chain links. And it's just a case of folding these round and gluing them. Now I haven't got the glue on there at the moment, but you can get the idea. You end up with pieces like that and then you join on that piece. Now what I tend to do is I tend to use my 2 pairs of reverse action tweezers. I think that's what they're called. They're the ones that you squeeze to open. And when I glue it, I grab it with the tweezers. And then I add the next one and I grab that. But what I do is I alternate between ends so that each end gets a few minutes to take hold. Now I will say it's time consuming. I actually spent an entire afternoon making my paper chain, and I will say that you need a lot more strips than you think you do. I actually worked it out that you need somewhere in the region of 4 times the length that you end up needing. So if you want a 12-inch length of paper chain, you're going to need somewhere in the region of 4 feet of strips like that you then cut up and make into little links for your chain. Now mine has been arranged on my tree, and if I turn it around you can actually see that there's different sizes. You know, it's not perfect, but I've never seen a paper chain that is, because every time I've seen a paper chain they've been made by a group of people, and when they all go together they never quite match completely. Now this tree is one that I picked up from the pound shop. It did cost me £1. I was quite amazed, and it actually lights up. Now I don't know if you'll actually be able to see that because it's supposed to be fibre optic. These little bits that are sticking out are the fibre optic pieces, and I do need to trim them so that they don't stick out through the tree. But underneath, if I turn this over, you've got what looks like one of those giant, well, it looks like a giant version of one of those colour changing tea light candles that you get. And that's basically what it is. The tree fastens into there, and yeah. Now the only problem is, because this base was white plastic, the light came through it. The light was stronger than the plastic. So what I did is I wrapped it in some cardboard. I put a piece of cardboard, this is just cereal box board, I should state, on the top, which is why the tree coming off was brilliant, coming out, and I was able to put it in. And then I've put a strip that I've fastened around, and then I've covered it in some fabric so it looks like a tree skirt. And when it's in my doll's house, because this will be going into my doll's house, it actually looks really nice. Now I've put this bit of a garland that I got lying about around the bottom just to tidy it up, because of course it hasn't got a nice trunk. Now you don't need to use a tree that's lit. in any way, shape or form. This I actually bought it because it was a nice sized bottle brush tree, and I thought, oh, that can work. And then I thought, well, I can use that as a base, and if I don't turn it on in the doll's house, it won't be the end of the world. But it does give me a nice base for it to stand on, which probably from that angle you can't see, but it does look pretty good. And I think that the paper chain works. It's the kind of look that I want for this tree. So there's that. Paper chains can be used to decorate all your miniature scenes. I've done them for Easter in the past, whereby I printed out a particular colour palette on just ordinary printer paper, cut it down and then made it up in those colours. It's a bit fiddly, but it can work. Or as I say, you can use any junk mail that you happen to have. Junk mail's great for this because you tend to get things that are lots of nice colours, especially at this time of year when they're trying to get you to buy stuff. My next little make is revisiting an old favourite, and I'm using some of this blister packaging. Now, in a previous video, I think it's my original blister packaging video, I showed you how to make a goblet using a small circular blister from normally from some kind of medication, and it was painted because at the time the smallest ones I got were opaque, they were coloured. So I painted the goblet. Well, I've been put on some different medication and it came with clear packaging, so I saved it, and that's what we're going to be using. And we're going to make a goblet, but it could pass as either a you could use it as a cocktail glass. It's not quite a martini glass, but it's in that kind of range, or it certainly looks like a champagne coupe. See, I have been trying to figure out which one I'm making, sometimes referred to as a champagne saucer. They're those flat glasses that they quite often use for doing those wonderful towers of champagne glasses. Anyway, we're going to be using one of them, and I'm using this is medication from antacids. If you've got some clear plastic from packaging, doll packaging is brilliant. If you've got kids, toy packaging is great. Doll packaging, I say that because quite often they come in a box with that sheet on the front. That's great for this, but I'm using that because it's the flattest plastic that I could find. I'm not digging through everything today, and this was on the top, so that's why I'm using it. And I'm going to be using a bugle bead. Now, bugle beads are the longer beads. This is a twisted bugle bead, 7mm in silver. Now, I've got some clear ones somewhere. Again, I could use those, but these I found and I think it will work. So here I've got my components. I've got my cutout little blister, and I've got the bit from the antacid square piece, and I've got a single hole punch. Now what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to very carefully punch the hole, and as previously when I've done these, it is not going to release. It is attached under there, and that is now between my fingers, so I'm going to pop that down on there. Chuck that bit into the recycling pot, and then I've got my 3 pieces. Now I've got some glue. This is just my ordinary sort of slightly tacky glue, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bead and I'm going to put a small amount of glue on the end of it, and then I'm going to stand that onto the flat piece. which is going to be the base of my glass. And that needs to be left for a moment. When that has started to set over, we'll use the cocktail stick again, and we'll pop a bit of glue on the opposite end of the bugle bead. And I'm going to turn my cup, for want of a better word, over, and that glue has gone into the bead. That didn't happen before. I have already made one of these. I have got one that I made earlier. Now this will need some repositioning to get it looking something like, but there we go. If I hold that against my hand, you can hopefully see that I've got quite a acceptable looking glass. And if I stand it on there now, yeah, that looks okay. Now if I pick up this one from off the back of my table, that is one that I made earlier. It's not perfect. It's not altogether completely centered, but I've had actual glassware that isn't completely centered. I've had expensive glassware. Oh, that's, yeah, that hasn't stuck properly on the bottom. And this is my, let's rush ahead and make this. Right. My first one has fallen apart. I'm now going to leave that one alone so it dries properly. I will show you how it's come out at the end of the video, and I'm going to stick this one back together. Like I say, things don't always go right, but I don't try and pretend that everything is perfect. This is real life in miniature. In addition to my coupe glasses, I have made some glasses using this. Now you do it using the same kind of technique, using some clear plastic for the bottom, and I cut off a section of this as tall as I want my glass to be. So you can make anything from a smaller mixer glass to a eyeball glass. Dip the end into glue and then stick it onto the clear plastic. Now mine are currently drying, they're not trimmed off yet. I am going to give them a good while before I trim them off, but then I will have some tall glasses as well as my coupe glasses. It's just one of those things that certainly at Christmas you might want to make it look like there's a party going on in your doll's house, in your miniature scene. And glassware is one of the things that, well, we struggle with it ourselves unless we've got 3D printers, and even then it can be, you know, touch and go. But this is a way to make them out of pretty much nothing. Now obviously, you've got glasses, you might want plates. The easiest way to make plates is to make paper plates. Whether you want them to look like they're paper plates or whether you want to decorate them and glaze them, paper or at least a cardstock is a good place to start. Now I use pretty much exclusively 180 GSM white cardstock. That's this stuff. It's thin enough to go through my printer. It's thick enough to hold its shape when I want it to. And what I would do is I'd use hole punches, because circles are an absolute swine to cut perfectly with scissors. I've got hole punches, so I use them, or you can buy a circle cutter that will cut different size circles. It's almost like a compass with a blade. So that said, this is probably the size I'd go for an actual plate for eating off, and that's 5/8 of an inch. It isn't actually, because it's measured even in millimeters, but it equates to about 5/8 of an inch. And then I've got a 1-inch punch, which I would use either for a serving platter or for a charger plate or table mat. Now, a charger plate is generally a fancy plate that you put the actual plate you eat on top of. You can make this with any pretty card. You can make it with cereal box material and paint it. Cereal box material takes a metallic finish really, really well. It's one of my favourites. But that just gives you a nice rim around it. It makes your table setting look that little bit more special. Now, I've also got a smaller punch, which I'd use for a side plate, a salad plate, something like that. Always useful. Obviously, when it comes to actual serving dishes, you could make them with my sort of I've used it as trays, whereby you cut out circles or any other shape for that matter, with the cereal box material, 2 layers of it, and then you use a piece of, generally I use the cardstock, around the edge, and then paint it to make a little bowl, which you can obviously alter the height of. Or you can use, well, pretty much anything. You can use some blister packaging if they're big enough. They can be painted up if that's what you want, or you can leave them, if they're white, you can leave them and you can put on tiny little details to make it look like that sort of Pyrex and such like dishes that I know a lot of people have got, that are these vintage dishes that come out at certain times of year. Or you can try cutting things down. Move the punches out of the way. This is a little tiny bottle that came with a supermarket sushi. Now, in the UK at least, you can go into supermarkets and some other stores, that's grocery stores, and you can get pre-prepared sushi. Now, it's not proper sushi, but it's sort of sushi-esque, and it comes with a little tiny bottle of soy sauce. And this is what this contained. And I kept it because, well, I can see quite a bit of use in this. I'm not going to go into all of them at the moment. Obviously, the lid is that nice sort of shaped lid. That could be a beaker. It could be a small pot for a very small plant. I love this shape of lid for plant pots, and they are quite difficult to get now. Or you can make a bowl to put something in by cutting the bottom of the bottle off. Now, I'm not going to do this now because although I've cleaned this out, there is still a little bit of very watery residue, and I don't want it going all over my table. Obviously, I'd work over some paper towel and I would give it another wash once I'd cut it up. But my thought would be to cut off that bottom bit, and then that would make a nice little dish for putting something in. Now, I don't make a lot of food, but it is possible to fudge it, for want of a better phrase, if you want a groaning holiday table. There are lots of tutorials out there for making food with particularly polymer clay. I would love, as I have said before, the time to actually spend on polymer clay, but at the moment it's not going to happen. So I will stick with the purchased items that I've got for food. But it's just to show you that you can find things like this. And there's obviously other bottles, containers that you could do the same thing with. It's like the puffy paint that I was using yesterday. A similar bottle to this could also be cut off and make quite a big container. Same token, you can do it with a lot of bottle tops. that would sort of allow you to have enough variety, I hope, to cover your table. And give you the things you need to serve up your food. The one items I haven't actually managed to come up with a cheats version for at the moment is cutlery, silverware. That one has escaped me, particularly in 1/12 scale because it needs to be small. But I'm sure I'll come up with something at some point. A lot of the Christmas items that I've made in the past, although they've tended to be Creepmas orientated, are also fitting for this kind of video. They've tended to be made from cereal box material, bits of scrap that I've got lying around the craft room, and although I did creepy versions, as I've always said, they can be changed up to a more conventional theme. I would encourage you to look at the things around you, be it your own decor or decor that you see in the stores, and then question how you can make it yourself. I find that to be far easier than going, I've got this, what can I make with it? Is to think more along the lines of, I want to make this, what can I use? That turning your perception can actually be very, very powerful when it comes to making miniatures. Now, I haven't made as much in this video as I was planning to because time has run away with me, but I hope that I have at least inspired you to think that you can make Christmas from next to nothing. I mean, this lot here, I spent £1, I bought a tree. I didn't need to. I have already got Christmas trees of various shapes and sizes. There are also lots of tutorials on the internet for making Christmas trees that look brilliant. I've made so-so Christmas trees, but there are people showing you how to make Christmas trees from chenille pipe cleaners that look pretty stunning. And that's all you need is chenille pipe cleaners, which it's a couple of pounds worth of materials if you don't already own some. And there is a chance that if you're a crafter that you do. I know what we're like. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please like, comment and subscribe. Don't forget to ring that notification bell because it will let you know, hopefully, when I upload a new video. I'm not currently uploading to a schedule, I'm just going with the flow. So yeah, it's not altogether reliable, but it's the best tool we've got. And until next time, bye.